Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of RPG Radio. My name is Winback, and on today's video we're going to be going through all three of the world bosses for Diablo IV, starting with the Wandering Death, followed by Avarice, and finally Ashava, everybody's tried and true favorite that we've all beaten a million times. But let's talk turkey. There's a lot of different mechanics going on for each of these boss fights, and all of them are relatively easy to dodge if you know what's happening. So big bone cage right there happening for Wandering Death is a huge damaging prison. It is a Nova that he has got to channel a bit. You can claw your way out of the prison with damage by breaking the wall, or if you have enough buddies hanging around dealing damage, that may link over to the bone cage as it is. His other big ability, the death lasers, the scream beam as I like to call it, because he's just shouting into the sky, firing death lasers at everyone, spinning pretty slowly. The closer that you are to him, the harder it is to dodge. The further away that you are, the less you have to worry about it. He's got a big AoE melee slam just like Ashava does. That one is going to change as he progresses down in health. He does some evolutions as it is. The more health that he loses, he gets that second set of arms for the first, I want to say, quarter of his life, and then the further down he gets, he's going to start spawning more of these slowing tornadoes. These are massive pains in the booty because they can slow you down just long enough to get caught by the scream beam, like that unfortunate soul. Oh man, just a bunch of people getting caught by him, dang. Remember, if you are closer to him, you're going to be having a harder time dodging the beam. So if you don't think that you can hang on his toesies, you walk way away when the beam is going off. The number of tornadoes on the screen just continues to multiply. They are incredibly aggravating. The damage that they do isn't as bad as the amount of CC that they're dropping on you, because he can hit you a lot more often just in time to be staggered. No bone zones for this man. We're over half his health down as well. Damn, we are just chugging along. I lost my train of thought earlier with his cleaving, his punching, his punch zones. So like Ashava, Wandering Death punches the ground. He does it in increasingly larger areas though. So in his first stage, he just punches the ground in front of him, sends out bone shockwaves. After that, he's going to, oh no, don't walk that way, and something tells me there was something really interesting on the other monitor, and I just forgot to pay attention. But anyway, when you are, the more damage that you do to Wandering Death, the more areas that he's going to punch around his feet. So initially, he starts punching in front of himself. At this stage of health, he starts punching in front and to his sides, followed shortly thereafter by punching at his back. Now, you can't just stand out in front of these zones because they do fire off bones after he punches. So you can still take damage, albeit it won't be as much as the initial slam zone as it is. If you stand in between the Venn diagram, you will be able to dodge a bit more. He also has these bone waves that he shoots out from the bottom, but they are rather telegraphed, so you shouldn't be hitting much of anything there, or you shouldn't be getting hit by much of anything there. Also, don't forget that all three of the world bosses will give you a grand cache. That's a weekly legendary loot box that they drop for you. Each of them having their own timer per week, so you can get 3 of those bad boys per week, as long as you are doing every opportunity that there is to kill each of the world bosses. The second world boss that we're going to talk about is Avarice the Gold Curse, which is probably the coolest one, if I'm being honest. He's got some more fun mechanics. Wandering Death is interesting, but I like the big, almost Godzilla-like personality on this bad boy. He does come with a couple of his own gimmicks, And probably the most interesting one is that when you stagger him, releases a couple of treasure goblins to try to distract you from dealing damage to him in his stunned state, which is, I mean, as you can clearly see, there's no CC. They're treasure goblins. All they do is run away, but you have to fight with the greed, as it is, in your brain. You have to be the guy who's like, no, I can't go after the treasure goblins. I have to kill the treasure Godzilla. But it's just a super fun mechanic. The way that it's been developed is really brilliant. I mean, it makes the players fight against their own brains. It's fantastic stuff. Now, Everest does have a couple of different attacks. As you can see, he just absolutely blitzed a ton of our teammates, and the only reason that we lived is because we're a barbarian and our health bar is enormous and we have a whole bunch of fortify, so lived with a sliver because I didn't know the mechanic yet. But he puts all of these mines down, essentially, and will inevitably do a big roar that activates them and causes them to explode. As long as you catch it in the right amount of time and you have your mobility skill, you should be able to get out of those, though I don't think your spacebar dash is going to be enough if you're caught in the wrong place. So make sure that you got something big, or like your blood puddle if you're playing the Vladimir class, the Necromancer. If you're a barbarian, I think it should be pretty easy because, you know, leap is leap, and it's really easy to get infinite leaps with almost any barbarian build if you're building like cool. But anyway, he's staggered. You can see the treasure goblins have popped out. Everybody's like, let's do damage. We don't need to get. One guy went after the treasure goblin, and as soon as the bar is dropping, as soon as the stagger is almost over, everybody inevitably turns on the treasure goblin because a couple more seconds of DPS wasn't worth it for everybody. That's cool. I'll stick with the program. He's also got this cool portal tackle. He'll disappear slightly and then come back from a different direction. He does knock down some of his mines when he does that, so he can give you a safe zone essentially from the mines as well if you don't have a good movement ability. He has a lot of pukey molten gold puddles, so dealing damage over time if you are standing in those bad boys. He does it at his feet a lot, making melee damage a little bit more difficult when it comes to that. But beyond his really easy to see kind of mallet swings, his portal charge, his gold vomit, anytime you see the mines go off, it's just run and scream time. He does have at least one other move. You've probably seen me get hit by it quite a few times during the fight. It's not easy to dodge because it's super fast, but it's a small pull that he does that will make you vulnerable, and it doesn't deal a whole lot of damage. So as long as you're a big tanky melee boy, like a barbarian or a druid, you should be able to just go right through it, not have to worry about the vulnerable a whole lot, and keep on your merry way, smacking those toesies. He's got about 5% of his health bar left, almost done, doing another portal charge. When this boss dies, remember that big chest that he is swinging around has activity to it. So once you got your cash, once you got all your items from his initial death, don't forget to crack open the chest and get everything else hiding in there. Pick up our second grand cache of the week, break down the golden chest, get all that sweet money. Dang, it's a lot. And then we'll move on to Ashava, because everybody's favorite is, maybe not everybody's favorite, maybe it's everybody's most familiar. From the big toxic mouth hole in the ground, Ashava popping out, ready to deal all of her poison damage, to punch all of our ground. I explained it once when I was going through my server slam druid, but all of the mechanics remain the same. Ashava is very much predictable. If you've done the fight more than a couple times, you know how to handle it. She does lose pieces of her arms when you stagger her, making a lot of her big cleaving damage less so. She'll also go for a lot of the bitey, or the chomps, if you're standing in front of her, just like the one that we got hit with there. So you have to remember to stay, again, at her feet, which is pretty much, you know, par for the course on all three of the world bosses. Get as close to their toesies as you can, because the damage being close is, it's harder for them to hit. They do like to eat those squishy, outer ranged characters much more than they can do anything to us big boys hanging out around the feet. But again, if you're not familiar with the way that Ashava's mechanic works, or mechanics work, she's got her chomp. If you're running straight at her, she will go for it. If you are hanging out underneath her for too long, or if there's too many people hanging out underneath her, she'll go for some big punches near her chest. She's got a poison vomit that she does probably after getting down her first quarter of health, or her first 20% of the health. Once you get her about halfway down, she'll start swiping backwards, because she knows the people at her feet are doing all the damage. But if you stand directly between her two arms swiping backwards, you can dodge all of that damage completely while continuing to deal the DPS to the rear with the gear. It's just so simple. I mean, it really is. If you can tell that you're standing under her little nub of a tail, you're good. The poison puddles pop up quite a bit too as she starts to lose health, so remember that if you want to just stand in those and take as much damage as possible, damage over time reduction from your amethysts in your armor is going to be really helpful. You can put emeralds in your jewelry to reduce or you poison resistance that way. Otherwise, you could just not stand in them. It is harder to do damage to her if you are a melee character trying to stand at her feet, because she does like to walk on top of the poison puddles all the time. But apart from that, there really isn't much more to her. And if we're being honest, once you have the big mechanics down for every world boss, they're not very difficult to dodge, not very difficult to work around. The big problem with all world bosses is just getting through their health bar, and since the release of the game, DPS for players is not difficult. So really, it's just if you get killed, people are going to laugh at you, and that's just how it works. That's it for this video, though, everybody. Peace out. I'll see you next time.